Hi everyone, welcome back to my booktube channel, Lisa in Bookland. You might be wondering what the get up is when I'm just at home on a Tuesday evening and I'm not going anywhere, but the answer is it's because the Rose of Tralee is on tonight and I said I would do this really silly short little original tag inspired by this festival. So the Rose of Tralee is finally back after COVID. I personally, it's one of the highlights of my year. It's really a marker of like the end of the summer, and it's just, yeah, I've never been to the actual festival, but I love just sitting down and watching it and I don't know, laughing about the common tropes that come up. So everybody that's from Ireland knows what the Rose of Tralee is. Everybody that's not from Ireland, a lot of people compare it to like a beauty pageant. I don't really think that's true. It's more like a personality competition. So kind of every county around Ireland selects a rose who is a young woman. I forget what the upper age is, I think it's 30 or something. And there's also roses chosen from like the Irish diaspora around the world. All of the different roses are called the like Galway rose, the Toronto rose, the Derry rose, the Edinburgh rose. They kind of go around the country on a bus kind of doing different events, and then it culminates in like a multi-day festival down in Tralee in County Kerry where there's like fashion shows and a big parade. The real finale is a final where they kind of do interviews and like maybe a party piece dressed up in their finery, televised on national television in front of all of their family and friends and loads of other people as well. And then the winner is called the Rose of Tralee, and Daniel O'Donnell or some stand-in sings the Rose of Tralee to her on stage, and it's lovely and is really one of the like events of the Irish television calendar. Opinions are mixed about the Rose of Tralee. Like lots of people say it's like a beauty competition. I don't think that's really fair. It's not supposed to be like based on looks, though of course all the roses are always gorgeous, and they like often they're selected, you know, for contributing to their community a lot and doing charity work, and hearing the things they've achieved is so inspirational. It has made like attempts to modernise itself. Like married women are now like finally allowed to enter, and they did clarify the rules for trans women this year, which is great to see. So yeah, I love the Rose of Tralee. So I've just come up with some simple prompts. So the first prompt is: the Rose of Tralee Festival is based on a song which traditionally is supposed to be about the doomed romance between a wealthy Protestant merchant and one of his poor, lovely and fair Catholic maids. Choose a book about a cross-class or forbidden romance. So this is like a favourite trope of mine, and I was surprised when I went to my bookshelves to see that I actually didn't have many that fit into it when it's something I really enjoy in my head. But I suppose I don't really read kind of a lot of romance. But I do think that Atonement by Ian McEwan is the perfect book for this prompt, and but many tragic things happen in this book, but it's really tied all together by the love story between Robbie and Cecilia. Cecilia is the daughter of like a wealthy family, and Robbie I think is the son of workers on her family's estate, and they like grew up together, but there's always kind of that class difference between them, and that kind of feeds tragic things that happen in the book. So I love this book. I remember reading it for the first time in like a day, and it was really, really wonderful, and I actually really enjoy the film as well. Usually I don't like movie covers, but because I enjoy the film so much, I actually don't mind this one. So the second prompt then is choose a character who would be a great rose. The roses themselves are chosen for being lovely and fair, a celebration of the aspirations, ambition, intellect, social responsibility of modern young women. It's important to specify they don't have to have Irish heritage for the purposes of this tag, though that is a requirement for the competition, though I think it can be quite distant. She's probably been in my head because I watched the adaptation at the weekend, but I think the perfect fit for this, and she'd be a great rose, would be Margaret Hale from North and South. She does mention the roses in her home down south as well, whose name has just escaped me at the moment. But yeah, Margaret always stands up for injustice, and she befriends people that are of different circumstances than her and like respects them, but tries to help them out how she can. She's really clever, and I think she would be regarded as quite like modern for her own time. She's not afraid of hard work. I love how she just gets stuck in even in her own house. And but she can still polish up well and fit in with society when needed. So yeah, I just love Margaret Hale in North and South. So perhaps predictably, the next prompt is choose a character who would be a good escort. Each rose is kind of a sort assigned an escort. Each rose's escort must be fit and able. They have to go to a boot camp to train up for it, but also like handy to have around. Must be able to sew, iron and support his rose with whatever is needed. Extra hairpins from his rose pack, emotional support, or just like telling her family what's going on when she's too busy attending events. So kind of an all-rounder. So I was tempted to say sharp for a bit of devilment because he he like definitely loves looking after his women who's are always doomed. But to be fair, like the dome probably wouldn't still be standing at the end of the night and he'd have caused so much destruction and trouble. So instead I'm going to say Gabriel Oak from Far From the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. So as a shepherd, he'd obviously well able for the physical duties, but he like always there for Bathsheba when she needs him, whether she deserves it or not. He looks after his appearance when he's going courting, comes to her rescue when she needs help with her crops or animals, but also like advises her on more personal matters, and he like stands aside when needed. So like a perfect gentleman, in other words. But still he doesn't let himself be walked all over either, which I think is important, and he'd definitely be in the running for Escort of the Year in my opinion. So yeah, Gabriel Oak. Who doesn't love him? So prompt number 4 is, although the festival is a big event in Kerry, most people experience it through the televised final. Have you ever read a book featuring television or radio? So I had to think about this one, and it's a relatively small but I think important part of the book. And that's in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, when they're on the run and the only contact that Ron has with his home is through the wireless, and he's always like glued to it listening out for that connection. And yeah, I think that's like probably for people that are living abroad, they would tune into RT Player to watch the Rose of Tralee, and kind of would remind a lot of people of their childhood, and as well as people who have emigrated or whose parents have emigrated and end up becoming roses. It's an important touch point for them with Ireland. So I had to include it. Prompt number 5 is, one of the most memorable and cringe-worthy moments in recent years was where the 2013 New Orleans Rose's boyfriend proposed to her on stage and she kept shaking her head and saying no. Though apparently they did get married afterwards. Honestly, everybody in Ireland died. I thought it was awful. What book has the worst proposal you can think of? Remember to give a spoiler warning if it's required. This isn't a very big part of the book, but I just love it and it makes me laugh every time I read it. There are many great picks that you could go with for this prompt, but my favourite failed proposal of all time is in Anne of the Island. When Anne is very memorably proposed to by proxy when she's in bed with one of her friends and they're ready to go to sleep, and her friend proposes on behalf of her brother because he's about to get the land in his own name. And would Anne ever consider him? Anne is completely horrified and says, "Oh Lord, no, I'm sorry." And then the friend reveals that he already has a second choice lined up that would do if Anne had said no. So yeah, it's just poor Anne, all her romantic notions destroyed in a stroke by somebody proposing by proxy. It's not even the last bad proposal she gets in these books. So yeah, I just love that scene so much, and it definitely is a terrible proposal. So the 6th prompt is, one of the most entertaining parts of the final is the Rose's party pieces. There are the traditional singing, dancing and music, but also dressing up the host Ayoshe in ridiculous outfits, singing and choreographing songs about bananas, and telling bedtime stories. Can you think of a character that has an unusual talent? This year they made Ayoshe get into an ice bath live on television, which I have to say he handled very well, better than I would have. But anyways, you can interpret this question any way you like, but I chose somebody that was really good at like an in-world talent, and for that I chose Carfax from The Betrayals by Bridget Collins. So I've mentioned before that I'm like conflicted about the ending of this book, but I do really love the presentation of how Carfax plays the grandeur. The grandeur isn't really explained what it actually is. It seems to be some kind of mix between like music and movement and logic and kind of a game. And Carfax is kind of from a long line of people that were like experts. It takes place in a school. I just love the way his like natural talent is described, and like the kind of spark he contributes when he's collaborating with other people on a grandeur. So yeah, I just think that's my favourite part of this book, and he's just like steeped in the grandeur. He's so talented. So yeah, that would be his party piece if he was ever a rose. So the final prompt then is, the international roses are a big part of the Rose of Tralee festival, featuring the Irish diaspora from all over the world and their descendants. Recommend a book where somebody comes back to their home place after a time away. This is a silly prompt for me to set because I was looking and looking and looking at my bookshelves and trying to find a suitable fill for this prompt, and I realised that I really need to read more happy books. I know that like isn't that a like genre of lots of books where somebody goes back to their small hometown. All of the books I had where people came home after a period away were all, they either had PTSD after being in a war, or they were Heathcliff and came back and ruined everybody's lives, or they came back and absolutely hated it and never wanted to see the place again, or came back because somebody had died. I just know I have no satisfactory fill for this prompt. So yeah, I would love if you would tell me your favourite book where people come back after a time away in their hometown. So I've never read Brooklyn by Colin Tobin, which I know is kind of that kind of storyline, but I've seen the film, and even that film I don't like the ending. I disagree with the choice. So yeah, it's just I couldn't find one for that, but it kind of had to be in it because it's such an important part of the Rose of Tralee. So yeah, I'm not going to tag anybody in this because if I was organised, sure, I should have had it up like 2 weeks ago to give people time. And the final is on tonight, as I said. It's actually 10 to 8, so I'd better get downstairs. If anybody does fancy it, sure, give it a go. Maybe you'd like to do it next year. I'm also going to link down 2 the videos, kind of are just skits on the Rose of Tralee that were done on the Savage Eye, and also by a YouTuber, Clissair, who does kind of a funny skit where she explains the Rose of Tralee to aliens, which I really enjoyed. So I'll link those down below. But yeah, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Thursday for my next video.